Also, just to get back to our mapping again, we talked about this increasing motion toward, approaching, becoming, and in our discussion we've also talked about the next one on the table, which is the motion away, which we have a couple different symbols for. And we also have, for this symbol, a number of different terms, which is cancellation, decreasing, moving away. Were there others?
Unbecoming.
That is classic.
I put it in quotes.
Right. That was too good.
It's going to end up being that. In honor of you.
I have one other question. Do you take the approaching, moving toward sign as always means that you move toward, but you do not arrive there?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. Before
That's where it finds its consonance with
moving toward but
increasing,
do not arrive.
decreasing, and becoming.
You said moving toward but not arriving.
Yeah.
Right.
And what differentiates it from destination.
Right.
Okay.
That's where it resonates. You
If
have
we-
to say what's becoming.
Yeah, moving away and
Yeah.
not arriving would be the counterpart.
Okay. I need to change the tape on the video, which means I need to shut it off, and we don't tape for just a little bit.
Okay, so
While
now-
I tape it.
Okay.
Is forward. Where are the two left? That's the wrong thing. How about that?
Control. And then you see
Thank you, dear.
And especially looking at some of those gathering. I think
Okay.
I think there's something.
I'm talking about having
No.
point of control.
No, I know what you're talking about. I'm sorry. I know that's the right words. But I think there's something that's in between those two, where it's not fully off balance, but it's not fully on balance either. That it's going through that session. I'm not imagining the Janice is doing. I think that's what Janice is saying. You know, they're not fully. You know, gravity is.
Okay. If I could just kind of bring you all together again.
Because it brings in that love.
Come together right now.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Sheila.
We've completed everything on this sheet, which means I'm now going to the motif at a glance. We also have the Preston Dunlop readers, and we have that thing of Janice's that you did. And we also need to look at, we've gone into the broad categories, but how much we want to go into then all the subdivisions of the categories to see if we're using the same symbology with the same meaning. So I think the first thing we should do is the gathering and the scattering.
Yay.
I don't even agree with myself on that.
I would say that I really was about the generic effort and shape.
So let's first look at gathering. And Charlotte write out what she wanted to write earlier.
Reference from beginning
Okay,
point.
let me just erase what we've got here.
Charlotte, label underneath.
Okay.
So we're going back to pick up a point. And Charlotte about reference point.
Huh?
What?
What?
Yes. We're not in gathering and scattering. We're going to pick up a point about reference point.
We are going to gather and scattering.
Oh, we are?
Connect to what Charlotte had previously discussed.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Eileen.
Okay, this is what we came up with.
saying, Leslie?
Oh, I'm sorry. Ann, Tina, and I had some little mini.
May I suggest you start writing on the left of the board and progress across?
Somebody probably should do this in floppy. But I'll do my best. Okay.
It's going to be number 1.
Oh, all right. This is A or 1, whatever. Okay, let me do it this way. Let's say G for generic.
Just make
But
it
you
a
still want a 1 or an
Put
A?
it as a 1.
As well. 1.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, just so we can work with it.
Okay.
So she's going to go across the board.
All right, this is generic. This is, what do you want me to do next? Either or both? I'm trying to make it the same amount of time as that, but please forgive me if I'm not.
That has to do, because the
Oh.
circle means number, what's in the circle is the number, and it's like any number. So it could be, that means it could be 1 or 2.
1, 2.
Yeah.
3. You've got 2 2s, Charlotte.
We'll do it cross. 1. Let me do them all, then I'll number them, okay? All right, both. Left.
So you use the hands for a second.
Right.
Yeah.
Either. So this is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, and L. And I'm just gonna, just for point of reference, if you don't mind. Did I do something wrong? Okay. Either, both, left.
You're flattening them again.
We didn't learn our lesson. We did not learn my lesson. I usually should have something else to do. Left, right, either. And no, sorry. And sorry, not very good. And there is nothing. L. Okay, these are all 1. Okay, 1. 2 A, 2 B, 2 C, 2 D, 2 E, 2 F, and this is 3 A, 3 A, C, C, D, E, and F. So, okay?
Well, do you want to say anything about that?
Oh, mapping? Do we agree on the basic sum?
Well, again, these are the, you can, what I'm trying to do with this is to show the logic of why, and it actually, one of the issues, coming back to the idea, if you make it does seem nice and logical to keep this as, without this as being the unspecified sign. But in keeping with the idea that you don't want to deviate too much from something that's really established, in gathering and scattering both, it's so established in the system that it seems as though...
So let's start there for a minute on our mapping.
Yeah.
1C, which would be scatter on from both sides.
Right.
Is that what everybody is using? Are we in agreement on that?
There, at times, we're getting away from it, but at times we have used that.
Oh, yes, that can be.
Oh, I'm sorry. I left that out. Right.
Yeah,
And
there was
by
a
the way,
transition.
this could also be both. And there was some question about whether this could be both. Okay, this is another issue that came up, a slight difference.
That's what we decided to do.
All right, but for the idea of scattering from both sides, we're in agreement. We're using this symbol, we have been using that symbol, it's being phased out, but we all recognize it and understand what it means. And the same thing for gather from both sides?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think the transition with those over the years has been that we didn't use the ad lib to mean generic, and so
Let's hold on to that one. Let's wait a minute before we get there. So scatter both sides. Again, we've got some agreement here. Gather and scatter on both sides. Then gather from the left side. Are we in agreement? Are we all using J? And
It would be okay to combine gathering and scattering left on
Okay.
one card.
There's an issue of what scattering and gathering is, too.
oh, here's the
I forget.
So gathering and scattering on the left sides we're in agreement, and gathering and scattering on the right sides are we in agreement?
We're on a roll, we're on a roll.
It's a short one.
Yeah, probably.
There you go. Start saying what they mean.
Okay.
Really interesting now what's going to happen.
Okay.
I like
So that far, we're together. All right? Now, if we look at 1A, which Charlotte has put up there as the generic, in Motif at a glance, that's used for gather either side.
Right, that's a recent change.
That's what
something
we are
that-
moving away from.
And this is where I'd love to see Eileen's generic sign.
If I had one. Jackie and Janice, if you see 1A, what do you understand it to be?
I would, not using it, tending not to use it if I saw it, I would tend to tell someone, as long as they hadn't seen either or, to use either or. It would get very messy for me.
I mean, B.
So actually what we've got there is, for that symbol, it's being used for generic, it's been used for either side, and there's some people who are not using it.
Yeah, because, and this is, I'm going to say what I was starting to say before. We had a transition of some years because we didn't have a generic symbol with the ad lib on it, that when you put them together, like C on the left, that was the more kind of anything, and if you really wanted both, you used it separately. So, I mean, there was a while when if you really wanted that, that's why we put the two on there. And so, because we didn't have a better generic symbol, we used the one that's now both sides of the symbol. And it had to do with, so, but that was, maybe that was 10 years ago.
And I didn't get that.
And some people did use it, some people used it that way. It was just kind of a transitional discussion that went on for a while, and it was used. And so that's why I see that ad lib
This
now
makes perfect sense.
is how I've been teaching it.
I'm sorry, you've been teaching.
Using the ad lib as a generic, but really generic, either or both. I mean, either or both.
The 1A symbol, the ad lib with a cross
right,
like that.
Right.
Jimmy Reed?
There's also a problem with dimensionality of gathering and scattering. Sometimes I see it within the limbs community, and sometimes I see it as between more than one notation sources and the effort shape.
Dimensionality meaning?
Meaning that gathering, let's say gathering could be a tilted plane, so I'm coming through there, but I'm really doing a two-dimensional movement. Whereas often I've been taught in limbs to always make sure that the gathering is a three-dimensional movement.
Is this
I've always taught it as 2 or 3.
Is
Not.
this, let's see, this is scattering. Is this scattering? Does it matter which way you turn? Can I scatter? And can I scatter?
Yes.
I use it in a real generic
That's a really
way.
good
Real, in that anything that goes away from the body, going out from the center, can be scattering, and anything that comes in toward the center.
Does it have to have
When I
some
work-
sort of carving thing? Can I shape flow it as opposed to?
Not when I'm working with it the way I'm using it right now, the way I just said it, in a very generic way.
Jackie,
I've used it more
But not a
specifically
straight
with
cut.
carbon. With
come
shape.
into the
Yeah.
body, away from the body.
Right.
Can't be a straight cut.
I have let them, when I use it that generically, that gathering and scattering is either going in or coming out, they can do it however they
So
want.
this could be
I
scattering.
usually tend to do this myself, and they often model that.
But what I'm saying is, if you do this, this is not gathering or scattering.
Can I scatter like?
Straight line,
For me, no.
but
But
if
if I throw it, but if I-
going away from the body or toward, it has to include the spatial, two or three dimensional.
There's two things happening here, yes, and I understand that, and that's how I do it. But when I'm throwing it out for beginners, I will accept that to begin with.
So this could be, this,
And I usually don't get that. I usually
This
get a sense
could
of
be-
coming in and going out. But-
this could be scattering. I'm gonna try to do it without, try to make, I could turn it. This could be scattering.
Mhm.
Or not even turn it to.
Along the street.
This could be scattering.
Yes, that could be scary.
Oh,
Yes,
no, that's just extended.
yes. But I usually,
Scattered seeds by just going
but,
like that.
well, but that's, I'm
It's the hand movement.
That's right.
Reaction.
Yeah.
So.
That's my most generic way of getting them then as we start being more specific with it, we will add the shaping, the carving, the two-dimensional. But when I'm just throwing symbols out at beginners, I'm going to accept whatever they do in terms of out.
Did it have to do with opening away from the midline at all for you?
For me, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So you could open away from the midline. Does that mean that there's a bias toward horizontality? Because the midline is a left-right divider?
So this couldn't be scattering.
Well, it's still opening away from the midline because there's a horizontal
So, but
aspect to
that
it.
I could see, can I scatter, can I scatter this way? Can
I never had
can
it. That's a
can I
totally different
gather
kind
it?
of
Let's see,
problem.
can I gather? Can I?
Now,
I
I
can't-
I think, all I meant to say is I think dimensionality is an issue that we're not real clear on about gathering. and
Yeah, I've always used shaping left open than Jackie to some extent. I never defined it as, I didn't have to find any ways, going away from the body or coming into it, but I always put it in the context of the most generic of our shaping terms. And I set it up in that way so that it has partly to do with that attitude of, and I don't think of so much shape flow as having something to do with like a show flow or just a directional movement as being something in the gathering, because the attitude and the intention of scattering and gathering, just as Anne just pointed out, but it's in the hand. There has to be something that molds, not even three-dimensional, but that molds. And for me, shaping can be two-dimensional. So it isn't so much about dimensionality, and I can keep it very open in terms of that. But what I do feel is that it's that first kind of forming of the idea of where and how you shape.
Penny said to me these symbols, and she said to me for her this. I think I don't know. We're not supposed to be talking about people who are not here, but just because we're not being. Who are you talking about? Peggy Hackney and I were talking about these symbols, and so she's about scanning out, and she said, well, they use this a lot. Which the could you put up like a 4? Yeah, that they to be 4 these little things with the shape sign.
The yen sign.
Oh.
Looks like a yen.
It's got it's the sign for generic shape sign.
Where is that? Right here. I didn't see it.
And
okay.
I don't want to. I think it was because that would become the generic with imbued with the kind of shape content. Whereas without that, it becomes what? You're not focusing on the shape content. You're focusing on the design and the turn.
So this focuses for A and for B focuses on the shape content?
Well, it imbues it with that. Am I right? Does that make sense to you?
It imbues it with shape content or reference.
Right, with the attitude of it.
Yeah.
See, I just think that you can do this and turn without it being about gathering or scattering. So I've never defined gathering and scattering within body kind of terms.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not about twistings or turnings or dimensionality even.
What is it about?
What is it about?
Janice, changing in your Spanish gathering.
But that's really clearly shaping.
It's shaping.
And it's
I'm
quality.
rotating.
Absolutely, but it isn't about the rotation only. I mean,
Well,
that isn't defining it.
Is it
What
about
defines
something
The
different?
shaping quality.
Is it about something different or than those things, or is it about some different combinations? I mean, you said what it is. Can we say what it is then?
It's about changing the shape of the space.
Not mold.
But that's
all
a
those
shape-
things that
that's
have to
about-
do with the shaping. It's molding
that-
it,
but
That's without gathering.
and it's within
gathering.
the context of gathering the space in or
I'm
gathering
not here. I
the
don't
space.
say
So-
I did here.
So I think that's what I think, I'm going to put in words, and she is saying for her, that's why they're using 4A and 4B, that could be any kind of motion away or any kind of motion toward, but with some sort of shape content. So I have a sense of shape flowing it or carving it, but the difference is away from the body or towards the body.
Yeah, but see, that's why I don't define it as so much as toward and away, because then you just get into flexion, extension, you get into kinesphere. Is it far away or close to you? Is it moving from extended to contracted? I mean, those are things that are about extensions and contractions, and not about something that's about gathering the space up, bringing, and that's a space in, bringing
Then
the
you
space.
usually do flex the arms and
Yes,
bring
but
that
those are all-
into the picture.
Right, but you could do something that's all fully extended that's scattering.
See, I think when we
You know,
talk
you
about
don't have-
shape, we're talking about two aspects of shape, and we tend to blend them, and that's where it gets confusing. And one is the mode of the shape, and one is the quality of the shape.
Yeah.
So that you might talk about the mode of shape change, and this, I have trouble with this. So that it might be a shape flow, or it might be the directional movement or whatever, but then you also have the quality of what that is about. So, and I think, unfortunately, we run out of words in English, and this is subtle differentiation.
What do you mean to have words?
Yes, I know. I'm not excluding the words, but so it's a sense of the shape that it actually is, and also my sense is on, that's not a good image. Okay, almost like a shape is the road, but it's also the car on the road. That's
But
roughly-
are you talking now about the difference between what is called body, what I call body configuration, and tracing design?
And there's an inner attitude.
What do you mean by body configuration?
Well, I'm in a, you know, all the still forms. Still forms are body configuration. Still forms, you know,
That's why
as
they can be a
opposed to.
state.
Can't they be a holding that?
You can do those things while I'm moving,
Right.
you know, or I can do them, you know, while you're in stillness, as opposed to tracing design.
Right.
But it's the
But there's still the quality of the shaping of the body
Yes.
is still, in both of those cases, shaping. The quality of the shape of the body.
All right, but
mode.
then is gathering then something also, and it's, you know, an added statement.
Well, I've always distinguished it as, instead of defining the shaping as having some dimensionality of advancing or retreating, or putting it within a spatial format. It's the more generic, if you will, that the shaping has a general scattering quality to it, has a general gathering quality to it. And it's sort of one way to begin to define the nature of the shaping design that you're doing. And
So you're talking about the process of making a shape?
yes, as you're shaping,
yeah.
as you're shaping the space, as you're moving, and you're no longer just kind of breathing in the space, or you're not just
As you
reaching
shape
to
moding,
direction.
not-
As you're shape moding and shaping,
Quality of that.
then it begins to take on some. You want to be able to articulate that in a more specific way. So then shape, gathering and scattering becomes one beginning way of looking at how that design unfolds.
That's what I was just going to ask you, not being as well versed in LMA, is gathering and scattering kind of the first entry point to shaping that you,
It can,
that you might
yes,
take?
that's how that's the
Okay.
context that I tend to use it
Me
in.
too.
Cool, okay.
The most generic.
Most
It becomes
generic,
the
and
most
then you, and then
generic.
you start to
Then you
look
can
at the
be
gradation,
yeah,
and the
then it can
shading,
be
and
about
the
spreading
initiation,
versus
and the
versus
facial,
retreating,
yeah.
and you know, it can have. Then it can take all the other kinds of.
And is that different from,
Dimensional.
is that though different from the definition that, is that a different concept from these signs that we're using? In other words, maybe these signs A, B, and all those were again being used for two different ideas in the LIMS community.
Yeah.
And what was needed, and this is why I think maybe something like A and B could differentiate, pull out this new idea of, or this second idea that the 1A and the 1A through F and 1A